You're right there, love. You got a pint of struggle.
And Dan, if there is a code word so that we can somehow rescue you or whatever the ransom is, we're there for you.
Yeah, they have little small eye nets that catch eyes. They're producing those at Hawk's Urban Tap Room now.
I never miss one. But I've discovered a bit of a problem I've got is I listen to it at night when I go to bed. And some nights I'm asleep quicker than others, but the most I've made is about 4 minutes in, I reckon.
And welcome to another episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. My name is Gabe Cook, aka the guy who is tap-saff all year round pretty much, and I'm going to be your host for this evening. Coming up a bit later on the show, we'll be diving into the important news of the day. Then we'll be speaking to Dan Pucci and Craig Cavallo about their new book, American Cider. Oh, producer Scott has been digging into the box of special sounds. Well done. As well as tasting a new collaboration between Pennsylvania's Wyndridge cider and Somerset's favourite, Pilton. Hello. But finally, we will be wrapping up the show. We'll get to a few of the listener questions. But first, well, what can I say? We have reached our first big milestone here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. Yes, or rather no, remarkably not. It's, our first court case because we've offended Italy or Scotland and we're being taken to court for international xenophobic slander. No, it's not that at all. This show represents 6 months of the Neutral Cider Hotel. There we go. Thank you.
The crowd goes wild.
Who would have thought we would have made 6 months? Producer Scott certainly didn't. He only signed up for a laugh, and little did he know, it's his primary job that he doesn't get paid for. So thank you.
Of the many jobs I don't get paid for, this is the primary one.
It's the one that takes the most time, least money, but maximum enjoyment, I'm sure you will know. Absolutely. So, as it is such a milestone, as it's an occasion, I've got my wonderful fellow co-hosts, Martin and Grant, producer Scott. I've got everyone a little Prezi as a token of my appreciation of all the time and the hard work that's gone in, and as an emblem of the essence of what the last 6 months has been. So, open it up. You've got your Prezis in front of you. You've been hanging on to them. I can see you're waving them in front of you. Martin and Grant, you had to sign for yours.
Yeah,
But in America, anything goes, apparently.
Yep.
So
send me anything.
You didn't have to sign for it, Scott.
Oh, no. It was left on my front door.
There we go.
Oh, what's this?
Hold on. Don't get ahead of me.
Hurry up, mate.
Oh, now
the
it's
suspense
wrapped.
is killing everyone.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. Thank you, Gabe.
What have we got?
It is a badminton net removal device.
Yay!
Tomato knife.
Tomato knives of the world.
4.5 inch tomato
Thank you
knife.
so much for a tomato knife.
This is my first one, I think.
Yeah, same.
Sheffield steel as well, it says here.
Well, the finest of steel.
Yeah.
Now, Martin and
400
Grant,
quid lighter.
you got the yellow handled version. Producer Scott got the green handled version.
Good thing for me as a colorblind guy. Exact same handle. So not missing out.
There we go. See, I knew. I didn't know. I really knew. That's really quite important.
I have a question. I'm very grateful for this nice gift.
I suspect there's a big old butt about it.
There's not a butt at all. I just wonder. I don't like tomatoes and I don't eat tomatoes. So can I use this on something else?
What the come
Or
on.
is it
I used it on a badminton net. You can do whatever the hell you want with it, really.
Right, but I'm not trying to be lumped into the same category as you, Gabe.
Yeah,
Do
but
you
also
understand?
Gabe, there were massive consequences to that. So if he chops an avocado and his fucking thumb comes off.
Ooh, avocado.
At the time that I was quite rightfully being mocked for my self-induced laceration, during that maelstrom, I was actually trying to advocate the fact that it's a really, really good knife. Multi-purpose, can be utilized for any number of activities and any number of digits to be removed.
Wonderful for limes, Scott. Just glide right through them.
How new was your tomato knife, Gabe?
It was quite rusty, quite old.
So these are
tetanus-inducing,
these are
I suspect.
significantly more dangerous.
Yes, I would use them with considerable caution.
Thank God you brought a weapon to a drinks night. Thanks, Gabe.
Well, I was going to say, for anybody who is relatively new to the show, who is wondering why I'm sending bladed weapons to my...
We should give context.
to my co-hosts. It's not a threat. I do love them quite dearly, actually. It was more due to the fact that I did have a bit of a mishap around Christmas time, which has been well documented. Go back to episode number 11, I'm going to say.
I think it's called tomato knives.
I
So
think it's-
you just have to find that out.
Wait. Neutral cider tomato.
Neutral cider tomato.
Tomato knives and badminton nets. Johnny, it doesn't.
We don't put the numbers in there anymore. So.
Episode 13 it is.
Lucky for some, not for me or my digit. There we go.
So guys, we're 6 months in. We're at episode 25. If we're looking at the next 6 months, what do you guys hope for the show? What do you guys think will happen with this show in the next 6 months?
It's, in my opinion, it's only going to grow and get to better and better. And the opportunity to, as things start to open up, to do some slightly different kind of things. We have, without wishing to reveal anything to the listeners just yet, we've had some invitations to go and do some recordings at upcoming events happening later in this year. Cannot confirm nor deny whether we'll be there yet. There'll be a grand announcement at some stage once we've worked out what the rider looks like. And so, yeah, it's gonna take different shapes and forms. It can only be exciting. And let's be fair, it is from about mid-August, it is going to be the modern British cider just plug-a-thon, basically. It's going to be the marketing strategy for modern British cider by Gabe Cook.
Yeah, I'm excited for hopefully some field recordings or orchard recordings. You know, getting out
Some organic sounds.
We've been
Absolutely, yes.
We've been sort of restricted, as everyone has, and it's meant that, you know, this podcast has been done remotely, and it'd be quite nice to maybe sit in a room with two of you, maybe all three of you at some point.
Wow. I wonder if the dynamic changes drastically when we're all uncomfortable.
Oh, really awkward. No, you go first. Oh, sorry.
Everyone with their hand in the air.
Oh, Martin, you're lagging.
Yeah.
Just go out the room and come back in again. Oh God. Well, I think for me, I just think how to put it in a good way. I think the amount of content is going to get crazy. I think hopefully people look at the show and go, "Fuck, three guys and an American are doing that." Not that Americans aren't guys. That was a weird sentence. I'm really sorry.
What's happening?
No, but like I think it's a weird, tight little unit of essentially an American producer and three cider enthusiasts. And I think looking at what's planned and what might happen, I don't think anyone in the UK in like their drinks podcast is doing anything as cool as we're going to be doing. So I'm fucking pumped. I am pumped.
Yes.
Absolutely. What about you, Scott? What do you think? What are you excited about?
I'm leaving.
This is my announcement show. Here we go.
Thank you for the knife, and
I'm out.
I will use it to cut the bonds with your bloody hotel.
It's the Ides of March.
Yeah.
The way I look at things, I mean, I look at even from the original concept of when we started to kind of where, if you go back and even listen to the first few episodes, if you listen to those, how the chemistry and the kind of vibe and what we do each week has gotten better and better with each episode. I think looking at the rest of the year, looking at the things you guys are talking about where we can get out and get in person and do more things, I think this is going to be a really exciting year for us. And I think this show is going to be number one on all the charts. I'm calling it now.
God damn. Scott, I love your enthusiasm. And yeah, and I have no reason to doubt it either. We're gonna have an awesome year. And there's so much more to be talking about and to be celebrating. And if we get to 12 months, maybe there'll be, well, I mean, maybe Grant's already said it, a bread knife, maybe a steak knife, maybe a chainsaw. I don't know. Let's see how big and dangerous a blade we can get. Possibly.
Oh, mate. Well, I think all we've got to say is, Gabe, thanks for the knife, but shall we cut to the news?
Hey!
Here he is.
Oh, what a professional. All right, he said it. That's it for our celebration. Now it's time to fire up the Commodore 64 and let's see what's happening in the news. Okay, everybody, now it is time for the news here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. And first up, something rather exciting. We have got a guest to come in and give a little bit of a live report. Welcome, everybody, Mr. Tom Oliver. Woo!
Hey!
Woo! Tom Oliver, being graced by your presence, your eminence. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening. Tom, we brought you on here in the news section to tell us a little bit about this exciting new collaboration that you've undertaken with your good friends Ancho, who are based out of Washington, D.C. For all of our US listeners and for everybody, tell us a little bit about what this opportunity provides.
Okay, so Ancho in D.C. Were primarily a couple of restaurants initially, and then they started making their own cider, and they are incredible advocates for dry cider. And this has, over the last few years, become really quite a vibrant little concern. And I think it's been especially important for them during lockdown, when obviously the restaurants are being closed. And so the cider making side of Ancho has been going great guns. At the same time, Sam has now decided that they would like to start importing ciders. And so we've set up a lovely little relationship where Oliver's cider is now available in the USA, courtesy of Ancho and Lime Ventures in California.
Amazing. So you said California, so that means Scott is going to be able to purchase Oliver's cider.
It's Scott, should he wish? And
yeah, well, that's a good question.
and don't force it on him.
No, yeah. and if his stipend from Neutral Cider Hotel has arrived in his bank account, then he'll be able to step out and purchase it.
Look, I found one bottle of your cider, which I still haven't opened yet, but I think when I pointed it out to you, Tom, you suggested that it might be aged into a wine at this point.
I think it could be an antique.
I think it was made in 1904, wasn't it? Actually, that was a good vintage.
It's the first bottling of Tom Oliver's cider vinegar now. That's
Did you open it? Have you
Not
opened
yet,
it? No. I tell you, it could be fantastic, but it may be a little bit funky by now too, but it's part of the gamble you take when you buy
with all of your ciders, or that's
all of them. I got so many
American listeners, buy some cans. They might be good.
So, Tom, which ciders of yours are available? What can people expect?
Okay, so the whole venture started with Sam offering to collaborate on a particular cider that it eventually became called Hereford Gold. And Hereford Gold is 60% Oliver's bittersweet cider blended with 40% Gold Rush. And that's a really good, drinkable tannic influenced cider, but it's got that lovely fresh zing of acidity that comes from Gold Rush. We've now taken that this year a step further, and we have got a collaboration Perry coming out. And I won't spoil it for everybody by telling you the name of the Perry. I mean, for some people, faux pas may seem interesting. I don't know. Anyway. Okay,
that's good. That's so good.
And then the third cider that we've done is he's now canned a particular cider for me that I sent over called Lubrication, which is what I consider to be an accessible tannic cider, but I think generally within the general consumer in America, it would be ridiculously tannic. But for those who are familiar with tannic ciders, it should be quite drinkable.
Well, Ancho were our guests on episode 16, and I believe we had the Hereford Gold then. So if people in America can have the same experience that we've had here, it's fucking lovely. So get on it.
Yeah, it's the thing to remember though that is as a someone familiar with drinking West Country or traditional British cider, it seems just so straightforward to rip open a can like that and drink it with all the caliber and character it has. In America, it's a completely different thing because tannin is just so unknown unless you're in the real micro niche cider drinking community. Yeah. So it's even a little bit it goes a long way. I think I find it quite hard sometimes because people are always saying, well, if you drink, deep tannic red wines, then that prepares you for a tannic cider. It may slightly, but it doesn't really. There is nothing.
Shots fired at you there, Gabe. I've heard you use that.
The book of knowledge needn't come out. I understand why people use it because it is a good way to introduce it, but it doesn't prepare you for the tannins of a cider. And that's what I love about cider. It is a completely unique drinking experience. And that's why cider is cider.
And where can people get the ciders that they're bringing over? Is it just on their website, or are they distributing for you?
Yes. So once it's imported, they are taking the distribution as well, and that can either be online and delivered to, I think it's up to 40 states now, but there are a growing number of states that will have it in what will amount to a very few shops because there just isn't the volume there to put it out into hundreds of different outlets. And I don't know the exact number of states, but every week I get an excited email saying, we've just done a deal with, this week it was Minnesota. And, it's what I really am excited about is Sam is excited about the fact that he's now got the structure of an import setup that's working, and he's now able to introduce more and more producers to do this, to supply into his setup. And I'm not going to divulge who's coming up on his list, but his list soon, as far as America goes, will read really, really strongly. And I think it's very exciting because I think cider coming certainly from the UK, but from anywhere else in the world, going into America has been a bit moribund over the last few years. There's been a fantastic growth in regional cider made in America, and that's really been very important to the consumer over there. But I think there's now, with a lot more people getting familiar with cider, starting to understand cider, there's a real excitement for cider and what it is like around the rest of the world. So I think it's going to come up another level again in America, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. And you're very much at the forefront of making that happen. So Tom, Good for you. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. This is our US correspondent, or Herefordshire correspondent, Tom Oliver, responding in. Thank you very much. And for anybody in the US who wants to learn more about these ciders, head to anxocider.com. That's ANXO cider.com, and you will find everything out. Tom, thank you very much. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Big thanks to Tom there for giving us his insight on the exciting new collaboration with Ancho over in the US. But that's obviously not the only news this week. Grant, what has been catching your eye?
This week, literally catching my eye, Hawks launched their rebrand this week with 3 cans. Their Urban Orchard, their Dead and Buried, which is their berry cider, and a new one, Pineapple Punch.
The pineapple category just keeps growing.
It does.
Unfortunately so.
See, I actually, I had that, and I preferred that to the Dead and Buried, and my wife Hannah drank it, and she went, "It's not cider, but it's nice," and we agreed it was just like a Rubicon, and there is a space for that, but is that what I want from cider? No. But do I recognize that people will want that in the supermarkets and brewdog bars? Yes. And for me, I like the kind of fruit sticker branding. What are you guys saying?
The rebrand is the rebrand, and it's fine. You know, like it's they're gonna sell shitloads of cider. That's what's gonna happen, regardless of whether there's a sticker that covers most of the branding. Or not, and whether they have rebranded themselves as not from what was it, saviors of cider,
the saviors of cider, yeah,
to cider, salvaged is now what it says on the website, which again is just more of that kind of inflammatory language that sort of pits them against people and heralds themselves as picking up something from a wreckage of the cider scene currently, and that just kind of annoys me.
Well, it was inevitable and expected that there would be a rebranding process, given the change of sort of personnel and everybody that coming sort of more into the BrewDog fold. So this is the tack that they're going down. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in terms of the liquid, whether there's any change there, and in terms of how the products are advocated. It's again another. It's kind of exciting to see how the consumer will take upon it, and also how the broader cider community, makers, advocates, and sellers all approach it. And on the one hand, I can sit on my high horse of knowledge and be
drinking Rubicons,
drinking Rubicon, feeling quite happy, and about the fact that we're at a point with the cider category where these types of things and conversations are happening. It was not so long ago that this was just 1,000 miles away. So I just get a little bit sort of giddy and caught up with it sometimes and go, this is really cool. This is great. Just let it roll. The more conversations, the more arguments, the better, really, because it's better than there being no conversation at all. But passion is awesome.
Cider really makers like this need to exist for the category to grow, and that it's great that cider is reaching this point. It's just, for me, it doesn't need to be quite as divisive in its its approach. That's all.
I got you. We got you.
Well, that's for me. The Saviours of Cider, Hannah and I both just hated it. And the first time she saw it, her first words were like, "These guys think they're saving cider," and I was like, "I don't think we can talk like that here." It was like a weird, like a drinks event, and I was like, "I don't think it's good." And she was like, "Well, no, they've gone out of their way to be antagonizing, so surely they want a response." And I don't think that they're making the product that warrants savior. And I was like, "No, you're not wrong, but it's just but again, like it's like you're saying, Grant, it's divisive for divisive sake." So surely it's not like a polite thing to be like, "Oh, let's not talk about it." It's like, you've asked for a conversation. Here's the response. So fair play. I really like the fruit sticker thing, but Hannah was like, I didn't get that from that at all. I just thought it covered the logo, and I was like, "Yeah, I really like it."
I didn't get it till you mentioned it either. And like Hannah said, maybe you're just more astute and more observant.
Well, Martin has now just spat all over himself, so that remains to be seen.
Lovely.
There we go. All right, everybody, there we go. That's going to do it for the news. Coming up next, our chat and tasting with American Cider authors Dan Pucci and Craig Cavallo. Now it's time for this week's interview. Our guests today are the authors of the most important cider book to have been published thus far in 2021, encompassing a full historical, pomological, cultural, and geographical, and probably some other odological assessments of the diversity of cider from the home nation. This book, American Cider, sheds light on what I and many others call the most exciting cider scene on the planet. Checking into the hotel today, it's Dan Pucci and Craig Cavallo.
Hey. Woo. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Dan, Craig, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. And what can I say? As somebody who has written a cider book, Ciderology by Gabe Cook, I know the pain that you must have. Thank you, Scott. I understand the pain and the effort that you will have gone to create such a fine tome. We've all had a bit of a read and a sort of trying to absorb the wealth of information that have come through. I wanted to start off with quite early on in the book. You talk about cider as being all about exploration. What do you mean by that?
Well, so much of American cider is so new. One of our big points of the book is that we're talking about is how what's happening now in the United States cider is very different from what happened here in American cider 150 years ago. Mm-hmm. And basically we're relearning everything, and everything is fresh. There isn't a whole lot of knowledge base that people are operating from to like, this is how we did things in the past. Like people who are doing things the way they did in the past isn't real. It's a fake narrative people are using. So much of what's happening now is constant exploration, where cideries are improving every day, and year by year the quality of the product gets better. Like looking back even 5 years ago, the quality of the product being made today is superior to what was being made 5 years ago. And I think this has a lot to do with orchards and exploration and discovery and understanding what works and what doesn't work for everyone's unique terroirs.
And it's really fun for the consumer now too, especially as spring releases and cider makers start releasing their new things from the previous harvest. A lot of times it's a new label. So, we're not, the market isn't expecting the same thing year after year because of this like liminal sort of space that cider is just constantly evolving and changing. So it's cool. It's fun to see what people are releasing. And a lot of times there's, been a lot of growing interest in single variety things, but from the consumer standpoint, it's fun to just see what's out there and what people are experimenting with and learning.
Yeah, totally. On the consumer side too, like I was saying producers discover things, but also like consumers are just like, I don't know what's going on here. And and so there's so much of that evolution of like every year people like 2018 was the year of rosé cider here in the United States.
Yeah.
And 2019 was hard seltzer. And so there's all this constant evolution taking place in the marketplace that like cider's figuring its stuff out.
Well, you said about then, Dan, like a false narrative. What was the false narrative, and what's actually happening now in American cider?
Well, the false narrative I'm talking about is that so much of the American cider story that people tell that exists on cider brands are how John Adams drank 2 tankards of cider a day, and just Johnny Appleseed narrative, and this narrative about like when cider was the drink of choice of the United States, and like that history did happen, but that history is very much disconnected. The history is embellished, but also the history is disconnected from what's happening today. In the 19th century, American orchards were not being planned for make cider with. orchards were being planted to grow apples for export for large scale commercial industrial scale agriculture. They were shipping apples like on both coasts, and either to make value added products or shipping fresh apples to the UK and to Europe or to Asia. And that cider really wasn't part of that conversation. So cider basically dies out in the United States by 1840. It's already viewed upon nostalgically. So like cider did exist through that time period as well, but like, on a such a minor scale that it's functionally not really important to talk about.
Well, I like that the founding fathers have actually featured on this podcast before, so I like that's already shot down in this. But what I'm going to say now is we've got a cider that we've all got tonight. That's a marriage between the US and America. So before we open it, Scott,
the US and America.
The US and America?
Pretty incestuous marriage there.
Close collaboration.
Yes. The United States of America and the USA. No, the UK and the US. Fucking hell. Can we open the drink? Scott, play the clip.
Scott here from Wyndridge Cider, chiming in with a cider story on the origin of the name Tessellation. Back in 2019, it was late 2019, when Martin, Berkeley, and I were back and forth about trying to fit all 20 IBC totes into our shipping container. I've been on the phone about that time with a shipping agent out of Liverpool. He kept saying 22 bins would fit great, and that if you'd only tessellate the bins, you'll fit them all in. Go on and just tessellate them all together. And I had to admit, I couldn't ever remember hearing that word, even though I kind of played it cool at the time. So I Googled it, and up popped the tessellations of M.C. Escher, which I remembered from an old art history class way back. I thought what a cool and really concise metaphor, really, for a blend, several elements coming together for a greater whole, seamlessly, not to put too fine a point on it. And I believe that's kind of what we're all trying to do with the fruit we're given. So very stoked to have had the chance to work with Pilton's Keys Cider, as I'm a huge fan. And carry on, guys. All the best.
Well, thanks to Scott there from Wyndridge.
Cheers,
Also, beautiful Australian accent there. Really hit the mark.
Who knew that the good people of Liverpool had such an Aussie twang? That's fair. Sure.
Oh, but yeah, this is a collaboration between Pilton from the United Kingdom, that's the UK, not the US, Martin, and Wyndridge in the United States. But guys, I am assuming you've already cracked yours. What are we saying about this cider?
This is really cool because it has that kind of Pilton core of like bitter sweetness to it, a fruit profile, but it has a lot more acid. You say this is Gold Rush and Northern Spy. You definitely taste that like backbone of acidity here as well. That's very not what I expect from what the Somerset cider would be.
So straight off the bat, you can tell that there is something other than UK cider involved in here. That sort of minerality, that acidity, that slightly a really interesting oily aroma is something sort of classic to ciders that I've had the fortune and opportunity to try from sort of Pennsylvania and New York. It's something really different, and it's this herbaceous kind of like fennel kind of thing going on that I don't know. You don't seem to get that so much in the UK, but I think it's gorgeous.
Well, for me, I'm in the fortunate position to have blended quite a bit of cider with Martin at Pilton, so know the base kind of in and out at this kind of time. But what's interesting is the interplay with that acid from the US cider. It brings out different notes of it, so it really stands out as a singular thing. It isn't just like an excuse to like blend two things together and fucking make a product. It really feels like that sharpness lifts some of those kind of fruity, herbaceous notes that you would get in the Somerset, but are a bit more grounded with the tannins. And the tannins actually give structure to that acidic, high, sharp cider from the US. So like best of both worlds and sort of proof that fucking collabs are great.
Definitely. And maybe it is the impact of some of the softer, earthier, fuzzy kind of tannins that are helping to counterbalance with the acidity. But the acid in this, it's not sort of showing us something that's really, really sharp. It's not like biting into like a really green sort of Bramley. It's not a sort of like eye-watering kind of like zing. It's dialed down a bit, and I say it's got this more sort of stony, like the word term minerality in wine gets sort of, I was going to say slated, gets slagged off quite.
Fuck off! No,
let him have it. Let him have it. You would love that. You would love that.
you,
what was your tomato
very
knife about
much.
cutting
Yeah,
into the
that's
news or
right.
some shit?
Yeah.
God, no one else is allowed to make wordplay.
Well said. I can't remember what I was saying now, but I'm just now full of pride because Grant's coming back. Yeah, come on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know, it's malic acid. It's still acidity, but it presents itself in a slightly sort of different way and form, which is just fascinating and great fun. Obviously, through the exploration of the book was to American Cider. I should give it its full title, of course. It was to explore the differentiation of ciders made all across the country, and to kind of learn and understand how there was differentiation because of whether it be terroir or because of cultural heritage or because of cider making inclination. Was there any particular region, Craig, which stood out as having like a really, really idiosyncratic kind of broader flavor profile or approach to cider making?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of fun researching about like Rocky Mountains, Colorado, Southwest Colorado, Montezuma County. Just sort of the uniqueness of the high elevation and the clear days, a lot of the high, very cold nights, but still a lot of sun, just like ripened fruit in a really unique way that wasn't really happening elsewhere in the country. And then the cider that kind of results from that is just kind of very interesting and sort of just nuanced in its own way, and just sort of like textured and lush and rich and just kind of in a place all its own, really. But that was fun to see and just learn about the history of apples too in the region, because it's so isolated and mountainous and things, there's no urban markets nearby. So it was kind of just this odd pocket of orcharding. But the cider makers today, like Fence Line, Teal Cider, some people, making really interesting cider from the region.
Well, one thing we've actually had on the show, and we've actually got some Americans in, so we can chat about it. We have loads of fucking questions from American listeners asking us why we love cans. You guys have written the book on cider in the States. What's your opinion on the packaging, and why is it different for us here in the UK to you in the US?
That's always so. I envy, or rather, no, I don't envy. I'm fortunate to not be a cider maker. I think as just purely a consumer, I am an advocate of cans. I don't have to battle with the hard work and the toil, the labor, the intensity, the unknown, dealing with agriculture, the climate shifting, and I don't have to deal with all those things and then try to warrant a certain vessel that has so much opinion around it. I can just, as a consumer, I will buy a canned cider just as quickly as I'll buy a 750. So for me, I think cans from a consumer standpoint get cider to more people. And I think ultimately that's part of the goal of this book, was just to put a context around this rise in cider in the country. And I think cans help get cider to more people. But I also, the flip side of that is I understand like cider makers not wanting to put their product in a can for whatever reason. I would respect those reasons. I don't make cider, so I don't have to grapple with that. But
I was at two things to that, which would be that like cans are great for cider that's meant to be consumed pretty fresh and quick. But if it's a cider that, like a lot of the Finger Lake ciders here in New York, are really they taste best at least like 18 months after harvest is really when they like get really in their spot, and I like to drink them. And like that's not necessarily the best thing to put in a can, and that kind of stuff tastes great in a bottle. And 18 months from now, it definitely is the kind of thing that like tastes great and ready to consume. The other thing here is price. Like the average, let's say the average 750 of cider is $18 a bottle. like that's the same price for a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans. So like it's almost twice. So as a cider maker, it's twice the amount of volume for the same amount of money. So it's an economic issue of getting less return on your investment. It's the same problem we had here with draft cider. It's basically the same economics where draft cider is hard because bars and restaurants want to pay beer prices to sell cider, which is a real challenge for cider makers to make products that can hit those price points.
Yeah. Grant, have you got any opinions on that keg cider?
Well, Dan just completely summed it up, didn't he? You know, it's like people wanting
100%.
people wanting to sell it for the price of a beer, and the consumer expecting that, and that's fair right now because that's where we sit. Certainly in the UK, in terms of draft cider, it's it's low, in cost and quality, and and choice as well. We've got 2 or 3 that, I mean, I guess I don't know if it's different in the US now, but it used to be when I would visit there, not every bar would even have a cider on tap, even if it was shit, Maybe that's changing now.
I'll take anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's definitely changed in the last few years. We see cider is now, 3 years ago, it was very much everywhere. Now we have hard seltzer, so we see a little less diversity of cider than we used to see about 2 years ago.
So hard seltzers kind of like sort of knocked cider's growth a little bit.
It definitely knocked it out of of a certain tier of like not so good cider that was being sold at like 7-Eleven. It is definitely that SKU is now a seltzer or hard kombucha.
Do you think that one way of potentially bringing the customers round to the consumers round to the ciders that you discuss in the book is maybe a language thing as well, and a sort of a lack of that? You spoke a little bit about varieties there and whether people care about them or not, outside of cider makers and maybe cider geeks. Where are we now in terms of a kind of universal cider language and lexicon, and where do we need to go to get to a point where we have that and we have something that's more understandable and universal?
Here we're nowhere.
Cool. Next question.
Thank you very much. Tune in next week. Yeah.
Come on.
like it's a mess. I think it's gotten better though. Like 5 years ago, everyone was saying this is our people were selling products like this is my dry cider, and be like, that's totally useless information for me. Like it doesn't actually mean anything to anybody, and you find these products that were very different. We're actually working on an article for Malice for some point about this topic.
Nice.
And talking about one thing to look back at is a lot of the early California experience in winemaking in California, and how in California they used to label wine by European generics. You'd buy like California Chablis or like California Sauterne, and like it would. Like the difference between California Cider and California Chablis were basically like whatever you wanted to make the difference. There wasn't really a difference between them. They're probably the same varieties. They're probably grown in the hot Central Valley. Your Gabe vineyards are not necessarily high quality wines. And in the 30s and 40s into the 60s, they people advocated to make appellation like regional specific with varieties as like the labeling norm, and that was very helpful for the wine industry here in this country in terms of like creating consumer awareness across brands. Because like it's one thing to like if I drink this brand and I like their California Chablis and I like this brand and I don't like this brand's California Chablis, it made it hard for consumers to like engage in the category.
Yeah.
And I think cider can learn a lot from that experience in terms of like how to contextualize cider across producers, not just within producers.
Well, I'm just going to take it back to it tonight. We're drinking a collaboration between Wyndridge and Pilton Cider called Tessellation. It's a lovely marriage of styles. The collaboration between you two. How the bloody hell did you two meet?
We started both working in wine in New York City. We ended up working together And then we worked for a restaurant group that had a restaurant and then opened this wine store. But yeah, just kind of blossoming friendship. And then as my sort of life was going in whatever direction, I started doing some writing. And then Dan opened a restaurant called Wassail on Orchard Street that has since closed, but was really ahead of its time and served a really dynamic cider program from around the country and world. So he kind of was tapped in, and our publisher, through a friend of a friend, wanted to do a book about cider, and they said Dan is the guy. And so Dan started the project and asked me as the writer, and the two of us just sort of tackled it over I think Dan started fall of 2017 and then talked to me about it in March of 2018. And then we sort of, we started kind of writing in earnest. That picture, the aforementioned picture where we may or may not be wearing shirts.
I'm wearing a shirt. Just
Tapsaf happening on the other side of the pond. There you go. It's a universal thing, everyone.
I think that was right after we signed our contract on the book. That was in California. My wife and I got married out there at her parents. But yeah, we sort of as friends, and Dan being the sponge of a human he is and being super smart and passionate.
Well, going back to the start for you then, Craig, what was the cider? You might not have one, but what was a cider that got you onto the cider bug? What was your first big kick?
Probably, and this is probably not uncommon, but I think it was probably a West County bottling from Franklin County, Massachusetts. I forget which specifically it was, but just kind of understanding the late Terry Maloney's approach to cleanliness and just having come from this doctor background. And just filtration and just this super clean product. It just looked to me like it almost didn't look like it was a liquid. It looked like it was some sort of just thing unearthed from the depths of whatever, and just to drink it and experience it was really special. And then just sort of from there, learning about how passionate many cider makers are and just how devoted people are, it became very much, I almost became enchanted more by the people than the cider itself. But it like all of us, we just got the bug, and it's there, and maybe less explainable than other, I don't know.
Scott is hoping that that is a bottle of Redfield that you're pertaining to, because he has a bottle of that, a West County Redfield in his possession. Not an easy thing to get hold of in California, I suspect. That's one of the great challenges and differences to the UK. One of many is just the distribution, the opportunity for ciders from one state to get to another is really quite a challenging thing. Obviously, the UK being considerably smaller, but if there is a cider maker in Cornwall, they can, with no issue at all beyond just the transportation, get their cider up to Ryan at the Caledonian Cider Factory up on the Black Isle in Scotland, if it was needed. But that sort of three-tiered system and regionality, do you think that has helped sort of create greater sort of centers of regionality of style and smaller producers?
I think it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in that way. Usually I say through pandemic, actually, we've been lucky to be able to everyone now ships nationwide now. So it's actually most cider makers in the country are allowed to ship to 40 states. If you go through paperwork, you can get the 40 states, so you can pretty much get whatever you want. And the shipping cross country, for us to New York to get product in California is only $35 a case or so. So it's not a huge expense to get cider from anywhere in the country. So Craig was talking about the Colorado cider. We would that cider isn't, those ciders aren't really distributed even in Denver, so we can get them to New York pretty easily. But I think we definitely do see this kind of regional style across that center because of these localized marketplaces where for example, in Michigan, they make, they're between this Michigan and Chicago, they're between this very beer centric market where 16-ounce cans have taken off really well and have been the norm for a very long time. Here in New York State, we're definitely much more of a 750 thing, and cans are more recent, and then usually 12-ounce cans. And for 16-ounce cans, I think Soham's really the only 16-ounce cans in the Northeast that are of a high quality product that are out here. Most of our producers in the New York State of a high quality are mostly in the 750s. And that's been kind of the norm. So yeah, we have to create the kind of normative feelings of how cider is sold and consumed and how it tastes.
Yeah. Well, we absolutely loved some cider on the last episode. But you guys wrote a book, American Cider. Abraham Lincoln has written Ciderology by Gabe Cook.
Thank you.
And he's about to write Modern British Cider. But I want in one sentence from you, Craig, first, and then you, Dan. Why is American cider better than the UK cider?
Yes.
Whoa.
No. If you're gonna write a fucking book on it, no, you got it's got to be better. Surely,
I agree. Bring it on. Come on. What you got?
I'll follow up with why Scottish cider is the fucking best.
I don't know. I hate choosing favorites. I think, let's see if I'll just be ambiguously diplomatic.
No, that's my job. That's my job. Come on. There's only room for one diplomatic person here. Come on, Craig. Hit us hard. Come on.
So American cider is better than anything in the whole world because just the way... I think the way the country came to be, it's unique. It's its own thing. It's its own entity, its own enterprise. And there, it's not replicable. No other situations. It's kind of its own place. Now, that's not to make. I don't want to sound like an uber diehard patriot here, because as the book points out, there are many troubles and trials and bad things that happened in this country as it was becoming the United States of America. But I think to celebrate the good here, for the sake of this question, I think what has unfolded in the pursuits and the progress that the country's made in agriculture and establishing unique, diverse orchard cultures throughout the country, I think, and having cider as an expression of that uniqueness is just very dynamic and compelling, and I think something that is worlds apart from other parts of the country.
Well, Dan,
that was more than one statement.
Yeah, that's a couple
well, Dan,
of
it's your chance to dick on the UK.
That was an essay.
Yeah. Go on, tell us why American cider is better.
I think it's better because of its
no diplomacy here, Craig.
No, because it's a
Dan's usually always the one telling me to not be so dogmatic, but this is good. I'm excited.
It's so open right now. We don't know what's going to happen, and it's so exciting to see what's going to happen, because we're finding these cool varieties that are really suited for great places. Talking to Courtney Malley at Bluebee in Richmond, Virginia, she has this orange variety that was a seedling apple. It's super tannic. That makes excellent cider. That was a fence line apple on an existing orchard that she works with, and they're growing that at scale now because it's a great variety. It doesn't need any of the inputs, doesn't need any of the work that you put into growing other varieties, and that it's amazing. That's in that kind of exploration, that kind of organic, tens of thousands of micro experiments happening at the same time, and we're going to reap these benefits in a few years. It's going to be really amazing.
Okay, Gabe, your chance now to...
Yeah. Why's the UK way better at cider than the US? You've written the book, Ciderology by Gabe Cook, and you're about to write the second book, Modern British Cider by Gabe Cook. Go on.
Oh, come on.
Up to the podium, baby.
I'm more of a diplomat than Craig is. You know what I'm like.
I don't give a flying
just do it.
fuck,
Just
mate.
give us your answer.
Everybody's got a place in the cider world. Come on.
No. I'm ready to cut the tension with a tomato knife.
I've heard you stand up for your county before against other counties in the UK. So
Yes.
do it for your country.
Yes, this is true. All right, I'll do it for my country.
For Queen.
Well, as part of the exchange that sometimes people from Britain look over to the USA and get excited by the dynamism and the sort of the freedom. The reason why the UK, Britain is better, obviously, is because we have this amazing heritage. We're so privileged, and sometimes I think we absolutely take for granted that we've got these regions and these cider making customs and traditions and these apple varieties in these orchards that have existed for hundreds of years. And some of those things are still in existence in today. You can go and see them. You can touch them. You can pick fruit from them. You can even make cider and perry from them. I have made perry from 200-year-old trees. And that
he doesn't shut
electric
up about
dynamism.
Well, guys, I'm only being a dick, but obviously one is better. But let's just call it a truce tonight and say that this cider here, Tessellation, is a great marriage between two countries, two different styles.
Yeah, really good.
You be the diplomat, Martin. That's not your style, but you did it so well.
Well, someone needs to.
Me.
So
true. That's very true.
I haven't written a book yet.
No, yet. I love the fact that you say Martin. Yeah. The confessions of a cider shit coming soon via Penguin Random House. And one final thing I was going to talk about was just the fact that in the UK, we're obviously such a small nation, relatively in terms of actual size and geography, and that cider in America, we're talking about a continental landmass and the sort of considerations that there are in, Vermont, where it's, as we spoke to, Eleanor from Eden a few weeks back, where it's under snow for a decent chunk of the year, most of the year, going down to the likes of Julian just outside San Diego, where obviously it's all about dry farming being a really, really positive thing because water is such a kind of scarcity. So that continental approach to the way that sort of cider is understood and perceived is something that we have no comprehension of here yet. And do you think that is something that is understood by cider makers, let alone by trade or consumers yet, do you think?
No. I think people for a long time we're trying to make UK style cider. We're trying to make European style. We're looking to Europe for inspiration of how to make cider properly. And then they didn't kind of ignore things around them. So they imported the varieties. They brought over the UK experts to teach them how to make it, and they used that as a model. And then they kind of ignored the dynamic resources around them to make a product to make an idealized product rather than necessarily what was already the wealth around them. And that's changing now as people realize there's things here that are really fascinating that probably grow here better than the English varieties I could import. And then they complain that I can buy English concentrate for half the price, or for a tenth the price of buying Porter's Perfection here. It's very silly.
Again, just to finish it up, we spoke to some of Artifact Cider Project, and we're talking about the expression and the artistry of cider. And I think hearing that, it's that kind of you can try and replicate another country's thing, but it's expressing your sense of place, and the US does it absolutely beautifully. And the beautiful thing about it, the difference between the UK and the US, it's apples and oranges. It's just two different worlds, and we're fucking fortunate that we can drink the products that are the best from each of them. So
Dan and Craig, for anybody on your side of the pond or ours who wants to purchase American cider, where is so long?
He was drinking then, and he got caught off guard. That was beautiful.
Sorry, Scott. For anybody who wants to purchase your book, what's the best place for them to head to?
In the UK, there's bookshop.org, uk.bookshop.org, that is carrying it there. Here, you can also buy bookshop.org here in the United States as well, or Indigo, which is a aggregate service for local bookstores. So order from your local bookstore, also on Amazon, wherever you want to buy books, but buy local and buy wherever you can.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us at the hotel. We've had a good time. We will see you another time.
Thanks, guys.
All set.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks a bunch.
Cheers.
And now it's time for this week's listeners' questions. Martin, what have you lined up for us this week?
So I've tapped into the Speakpipe. I've downloaded some pipe talk, I guess.
Pipe talk. It's a new sideshow we're going to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pipe Talk with Modern Shaman. But yeah, we also not my name anymore. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Sorry, honey. Boom. Yeah, listen to the Speakpipe. We've got a couple of things, but this one isn't necessarily a question. It's more a love letter to you guys from me, telling this person to speak to us from the pipe. So, producer Scott, give us the message.
Hello, this is Tom, small guy, massive arms, founder, proprietor, accountant, tea-boy, and in fact, only member of staff at Wild Ling Cider. Just say, cheers, guys. Keep up the great work with the podcast. And just remember, those Wild Ling guys, they've never left you a voicemail, have they? I'm the one who
Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah.
Right, bravo. Tom,
that goes right to the top of the Speakpipe charts for us.
Coming in at number 1.
Oh man, that feels like a long time ago.
It feels like half a year ago, doesn't it?
We need to have a Speakpipe countdown. Our anniversary.
Tom, thank you. It's the likes of yourself and your extraordinary arms that just keeps us so engaged and so excited to be talking about this cider. And the fact that, there are people who are listening to cider, even when we do take the mickey out of them quite, semi-considerably. But, thank you very much. And, yeah, good luck. We want to try your cider sometime. And,
I feel like we need to
see what it's all about.
I've already told him he's got to come on and we got to drink it. He's also like, I make about 3 bottles a year, but so that's enough for us. You can be dry, but it harkens back to it. Like the reason why and why I thought this would be a fun one to have in the show. We started this podcast because we love cider. That's the be all end all of it. And there's everyone in the industry loves it with the same intensity that we do. And it's just so nice hearing people like just lean in on the joke. And do you know what? The industry's made up of fucking cider lovers. So just wanted to say cheers. Cheers to Tom at Wilding. And thank you very much.
Well, Martin, what a wonderful thing to have brought us here today. Thank you so much. And what a lovely love letter to the Neutral Cider Hotel, 6 months in, still going strong. And Tom, thank you. And, for anybody who's listening who wants to try some of Tom's ciders, you know where to go, www.wildingcider.
Hey, it's producer Scott. Sorry to jump in here, but the guy screwed up the name of Tom's cider as well as the URL for his website. So let me correct that now. It's Wild Ling Cider. And the website is wildlingcider.com. Now, back to the show.
There we go. That wraps up another show for this week. Big thanks to Dan Pucci and Craig Cavallo, authors of American Cider, for joining us here on the show. And also to Scott Topol from Wyndridge Cider and Martin Barclay from Pilton for their fabulous collaboration, Tessellation Hard Cider. And please, everybody who's listening, if you're enjoying our podcast and want to help, please spread the word about the Neutral Cider Hotel. Tell your friends all about it and encourage them to listen, follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast app. It really, really does help. Also, please find and follow us on the social media. We are Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram and Facebook, Neutral Cider Pod on Twitter. And as always, you can visit our website to listen online and share episodes at neutralciderhotel.com. Last but not least, please, we love, just like with Tom then, we love people calling into the show and leaving a little message. And you can do that at speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel. There we go. Another week, another fantastic group of people here on the Neutral Cider Hotel. Grant, Martin, Scott, any last words?
Thanks, Tom.
Doesn't matter, does it?
And on that bombshell, thank you very much. Good night.